All right, today we are going to go over the Enlightenment Thinkers. The Enlightenment was a time period where a bunch of philosophers got together and they decided to start sort of thinking about society and people in a reasonable way. They didn't want to think about like the meaning of life or like these really deep meanings, but they wanted to think about if you were a person here on the planet, what should your life sort of look like? What are some rights that you should have? And you can see on this first page, we have this quote where it says, "We are all born with natural rights." So those natural rights are being able to be safe, to have food, to be able to provide for your family. All of those things are when you were born on this planet, you should be able to have certain rights just to keep you alive and also happy and making sure that you're fulfilling some of your goals that you might have in life, some very basic goals. So this time period was the time where you had a bunch of mostly men, philosophers, people who sort of think about big questions. That's what a philosopher is, answering some of these things about what people's lives should be like. Here are the 5 thinkers. These are the ones we're really going to focus on. We have Thomas Hobbes. We have Caesar Beccaria. We have Baron de Montesquieu. We have Voltaire. And we have John Locke. They are all from different countries. Some of them are from England. Some of them are from Spain. Some of them are from France. They're from all over the world at this time period. But these men really sat down and thought about some of life's big questions at this time period. Thomas Hobbes, his question was, what is the basis of social order? So social order is this concept of why do we have people sort of ranked in an order in society? Why are some people maybe above others? Why are some people lower than others? What is the purpose of that? So he sort of dissected that and looked at it, pulled it apart. His observation was that human beings in general are naturally cruel, they're selfish, and they're greedy. That was the basis of his observation. He wrote in 1651, he published a book called Leviathan. He wrote that people are driven by a restless desire for power. Without laws or other social controls, people would always be in conflict. So he believes because people are naturally mean and selfish and greedy, that unless we had a government and laws and rules, that people would be out of control and everyone would hurt each other. So you have to have things like laws and rules to keep people safe and also to make sure that people are being kind to one another. Thomas Hobbes believes that governments were created to protect people from their own selfishness. People are selfish by nature and cannot be trusted to make decisions that were good for society as a whole. So he's saying if you have people get together, even in a government, to make good decisions, that is really, really important that you have other laws and things in place that they have to follow, because otherwise people start making decisions that will only benefit themselves and not help other people. John Locke, his observation is he denied the divine right of kings to rule. So he does not believe that a king should rule the government. That just because they were born into a position of being a king, that doesn't mean that they have any real power or they should have any power. It's just based on where they were born. In 1690, he published two treatises of government. His book justified a strong parliament which protects human rights. He argued that the purpose of government is to protect people's natural rights. These rights include the right to life, liberty, and property. So John Locke believed that people are born with a certain amount of rights. That idea of the right to your life, the right to having freedoms, and the right to own property and to take care of your own family. He believed that the government's job is to make sure that people can actually have these things, because if you don't have a government protecting those things, people will want to take that away from each other. We saw that a lot in the Salem witch trials when we talked about that. In exchange for rights, people give the government the power to make and enforce laws. The true basis of government is a social contract or agreement among free people. His theory was that a government's authority is based on the consent of the people. If the government failed to respect people's rights, it can be overthrown. So he believes that the government, as a result, we set this up to protect our own rights, and as a result, we make sure that we give the government power to also enforce laws, and if somebody's doing something illegal, that they get punished for that. So it's a contract between us and the government. The government gives us rights, and we have those responsibilities of making sure that we're following laws and we're being good citizens. If people are not being respected, then you can get rid of the government, because that means that they're not following our contract. If we're not getting the rights we deserve as people, we can get rid of that government. Okay, just like how the government can punish us if we're not fulfilling our responsibilities of being good citizens. Baron de Montesquieu, sorry, I have to keep moving my face around. His observation, too much power in the hands of any one person or group can lead to tyranny. So he believes that no matter who you are, if there's way too much power in one group, whether it's a king or a president or Congress or anything, that it will lead to tyranny. Tyranny means that it's something that's going to hurt people. The French author, he wrote in 1748 that he published The Spirit of Laws. He argued that the best way to protect human rights is to divide power among three branches of government. Each branch of government checks or limits the power of the others. We've gone over this. We have checks and balances in this country. Baron de Montesquieu came up with that idea, saying you have to have checks and balances so nobody has all of the power in the government. You need to spread that power out evenly. These are the three branches of government. If we remember, we have the legislative branch, we have the executive branch, and we have the judicial branch. We went over all of those things already. That's the Congress, President, and the Supreme Court. That was his idea, Baron de Montesquieu. Caesar Beccaria, his observation, he studied criminology, which is the scientific study of crime and punishment. He objected to the harsh practices that were common in the day and called for changes in criminal law to protect the rights of the accused. Torture was common, and people found guilty of crimes were often sentenced to death. So he did not believe that people should be punished excessively. They used to be tortured. They used to be put to death very easily in the government, and he decided that that should change because he didn't think that was fair. He believes that the punishment should fit the seriousness of the crime. You shouldn't be put to death for stealing something. But if you did murder somebody or murdered multiple people, maybe that is a more equal punishment. So he believed in weighing things better, which explains, once again, the Salem witch trials. That was a time period where he needed to look at that and realize that the punishments for these people did not fit their crimes that they committed. The women of the Enlightenment, there are a few women, but we're going to only focus on a couple. Enlightenment thinking influenced many throughout Europe and inspired revolutions in America and France. Although women of the 1700s did not have the same rights or status as men, there were a few who played an important role by helping to spread ideas about rights and equality for women. Mary Wollstonecraft, in 1792, wrote A Vindication of the Rights of Women. She argued for equality and the education rights for women. She believed that that was incredibly important. All right, that is the end of the PowerPoint. Make sure that you are answering the questions.